Welcome back. I'm Mindy Gibbons-Klein with another episode of Panoma Perspectives. Today we have Kavitha Chahel speaking to us about her book, Compassionism. Hello, Kavitha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Thank
Please,
you for having me.
of course, tell everybody about yourself and your book, please.
So this is my book, Compassionism. Let me see, let's start with the book. So I wrote the book, when I started to write the book, I was coaching already and I was doing some leadership coaching. And one of the things that became very apparent is this common thread of compassion in the workplace, or a lot of the time, the lack of compassion in the workplace. And it's strange because when you work in such stressful environments, even if you like your colleagues, and you don't have to like your colleagues, but very often when the stress is piled on, which it does, as we all know, there's always one thing or another. You have suppliers, you have, customers, you have clients, you have all these people that just keep putting on the pressure. And then you have your own targets to hit or your own KPIs to meet. And then you have bosses that don't particularly communicate very effectively. And that can make situations even harder to deal with. So, and that's a learning over obviously having worked in lots of different types of industry and coached and trained and actually, worked with lots of clients across the globe. That's one of the most common issues, is the way in which we communicate with each other. And often the conversation can be quite destructive, right? Because the problem becomes the person. So this happens a lot. And I'm not saying that everybody's perfect, and sometimes the problem is the person, but there's ways of communicating that rather than throwing the ball at them and going, well, it's your problem now, not mine, so you deal with it. Rather than going, okay, this is the problem and it's separate to you and I as a human. How do we solve it? And actually then you put on your creative hat, right? You become the problem solver rather than there's a problem and you are the problem. And then actually what it does is it bashes someone over the head, and it doesn't allow them to be creative. It doesn't allow them to be effective. It doesn't create engaged teams. And then you have all the issues of this underperformance, not being creative, not growing your business, not making the money that you want. And I'm not saying that the only thing is communication. Obviously, there's other things involved, but the reality is, if we communicated more effectively and better than how we do now, then actually things change. And very often I'll ask people that I've coached before, would you have your child work in this organization that you lead? And it takes people back because they're like, oh, no, I wouldn't want my son or daughter working here. Well, if that's the case, then something really needs to change because other people's children are working here. Right? So that's where Compassionism came from, and why I was so focused on compassionate leadership and problem solving. My background, I studied biochemistry at university and medical biosciences, and obviously I worked in a lab for 6 months and thought, right, I'm not doing this anymore, thank you very much, and went and did an MBA and then did NLP and did NLP master practitioner and did hypnotherapy just to add to the toolbox, because I found actually as I was working with clients, I started doing a lot of coaching. Unbeknownst to me, that's what I was doing. And then I needed the tools to actually do it properly. And then this is where it sort of evolved from.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it makes total sense when you talk about it. We're all about books that change lives. That's our strapline at Panoma Press. And I know your book can change someone's life, but do you want to kind of speak to that point?
Yes, because I think sometimes, and here's the thing about life, right? We always talk about work-life balance. Actually, I don't think there is such a thing. It is all life, because our work is part of our life. We spend a lot of our time doing work. And so if we think of it as, oh, that's my work, this is my life, and they don't impact one another, that's not true, really, because what happens at work, when you have a stressful day, if you think of how somebody communicates with you, if the communication has been poor and it's been destructive, when you come home, your mindset is still that you carry that weight and you bring it home to your family. And then you might moan about it at the pub, and then that kind of brings everyone down, right? And you moan about it at home, and it brings everybody down. And then that we repeat those patterns of communication. We repeat those patterns of communication with the people we love. And actually, what is your life then? It's just literally a process of destruction after destruction. And here's the thing: we're as people, we're strange. We are very strange. Humans are very strange. You know, we find ourselves in these circular downward spirals, and we often don't know how to step out of them. But the spiral can go upwards too. And actually, if we changed one small thing, it can change every little thing else. You know, it's like you change something at work and you feel better at work, and then suddenly you're nicer to your family, and the way you communicate with them improves. Or vice versa, you improve the way you communicate with your family, and then suddenly things improve, you know, a little bit at work, perhaps because you've learned how to communicate differently. And I always use this example. My poor husband, bless him. I used to get really angry. Like I'm quite fiery by nature. I'm quite passionate, as my husband says. And I used to I'd get angry and I would go, "Rah!" And then I'd learned to say, actually, what would happen if I just didn't? Because it's not his fault I'm angry. I'm angry because I'm choosing to be angry. But then I actually used to say, there's often a trigger, right? Something triggers us, and we don't often know what the trigger is. Like with values, we don't know what we value until someone knocks up against it. So I actually now, when I'm angry, I say to him, do you know what? I can't communicate with you right now because I am actually angry. I'm feeling angry, and it's pointless us having a discussion now because I can't even tell you what I'm angry about. So I don't know what needs to change, or what I would like for us to be able to do differently next time. But since I've been able to do that, actually my communication with him has improved because I can step back from I can still go, you know, chuck a cushion about or whatever. It's not directed at him. And this is the thing with work. People will frustrate you because we are so different. And there's obviously going to be something that someone bumps up against, knowingly or unknowingly. And if we constantly do this with our reactions, we're not communicating very well. It's almost going, yeah, do you know what? I'm really angry with you right now. I'm angry about something, and I need to go away and think about what that is, because then I can solve it. And you might be able to help me solve it. But if I yell at you, it's like, Mindy, if I yelled at you about something, the last thing you want to do is help me solve the problem. You'd be like, well, yeah. So
Wow. There's certainly a lot more where that came from. Can we see the book again? Because I've
yes,
encouraged the viewers to get a copy of Compassionism, because you know they can learn from you and a whole lot more. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you
thank
so,
you.
so much, Kavitha.